righty. So, okay, the accountability culture shift. All right. So, outline of what I'm going to talk about is the needs, the wishes that we are hearing from all the leaders. We're talking about accountability. It keeps on coming up and coming up. Okay, now what are they talking about? All right. Then I will break that down into a perspective of challenges, issues, pain points, the problem statement. And in doing so, I will employ one of my favorite metaphors, looking into different windows of organizations. And then I will do a further breakdown of the challenges, issues, pain points that I see. Okay. That's what. So what? So what's the insight? From there, I will share you my insights, my particular insights, why the focus on accountability and why the focus on ownership. Okay. Then I will hand it over all back to you. Now what can we do? And this we will discuss. All right, so let's go. Okay, CEOs, GMs, unit heads like the idea of accountability culture because, okay, first the definition of accountability. Accountability is the readiness and capability to take ownership of one's actions, decisions, and the outcomes they lead to. When people hold themselves accountable, they actively seek out challenges, find solutions, and continuously improve their abilities. Accountability, embraced as a fundamental value by everyone in an organization, cultivates a shared sense of commitment to keyword, collective success, and alignment with organizational goals. Okay, so alignment with organizational goals, I will later use a keyword called laddering up. So it's very, very important. Everyone feels empowered, creating an atmosphere that nurtures growth both personally and organizationally. All right. So what's it in for me? What's it in for us? Accountability requires a foundation of transparency and integrity, urging the accountable person to be honest about their strengths and weaknesses while actively seeking feedback for professional growth. So there is an element of openness that we want in our people. Accountability holds a promise as a solution to command and control leadership and micromanagement. We've been trying to get rid of control and command and micromanagement for decades, even centuries. So, accountability and ownership might be the holy grail. That's what leaders are thinking about. Okay? All good things, right? But that's the ideal. That's the aspiration. Now, the challenge is, okay, the number one challenge, okay, we resist holding others accountable because we're uncomfortable in doing it. Accountability is not a comfortable world. Just apply it to yourself. Being held accountable. A little bit of a stressful feeling, right? Okay. Being held accountable causes anxiety. Okay. So, it's our biological reaction to this to start with. Okay. That's the number one challenge. All right. Meanwhile, we have the chronic problem of employee disengagement. It's just there. It just doesn't go away. What do we do about that? Right. And then also the fundamental, distrust inside the organization. It might not necessarily have to be, toxic, it could be simply more in the form of, well, our priorities frequently change. So, one leader comes in, says this, another leader comes in, it changes. So why should we take it seriously? Okay. So, this somewhat lack of respect, okay, it leads to indifference, right? So that's the challenge there. One thing that is very, very now becoming a big thing, given that we are in the data-driven management era, is our obsession with metrics. All right. There are more and more measurements. SAP and Oracle is doing a killing of the business with all of the management information systems. All right. Okay. Now, the dangerous side of being metrics driven is that it creates an expectation. Once the target is met, people can take their foot off the gas. It has a perverse effect, and we'll talk about these perverse effects more. Essentially, it breaks the cycle of continuous improvement, right? So once we achieve the metrics, it's like, okay, my job is done. I'm not even going to look at it, right? Okay. Leaders often concentrate on short-term monthly and quarterly results, which manifest in immediate thinking over genuine accountability. Consequently, employees prioritize hitting the metric of the month over doing the right thing. Yes. These are all perverse effects of metrics. So despite, a good intent in bringing in metrics, hoping that it will, drive performance, actually, it can be very detrimental to performance. Now, when accountability is absent, one person's delay becomes the team's delay, causing issues to snowball. Okay, so basically, people don't take accountability serious, their responsibilities, and say like, it's okay. I think and I can be a little bit late for this one. It has a ripple effect on other people, and it keeps on snowball, right? Okay, and similarly, this little bit of I don't really care kind of mentality. Okay, this also manifests in what we call picking up the trash, right? So this is a Netflix lingo. In Netflix, okay, they use the mental model of picking up trash as an important organizational value. If you see a problem, all right, okay, don't leave it to other people. You pick it up, you bring it up, even if it's not yours. If you spot it, just like picking up trash and throw it away, all right, and be socially engaged and bring it up to everyone. Yeah. Now, most in organizations, like us being pedestrians, we don't pick up the trash, right? Even if we see it, we feel that it's not our job. This basically fosters siloed behavior. So changing the perspective a little bit. Okay, so when I go into organizations, the metaphor that I use is windows. Okay, and we have 101 ways to approach your organizations. As a matter of fact, as external consultants and coaches, when we are approached, it can come in different forms. Sometimes it's an agile engagement. Other times it's an emotionally intelligence, training engagement. Other times it's it's about high performance leadership teams and so on and so forth. Those are windows. Right. So performance management, it could be an employment engagement, thing. It could be OKR and feedback, building a feedback culture. Michael, I know that you're an expert on this. Okay. It can be directly in ownership culture. It can be about RACI. Yeah. Responsible, accountable, consulted, informed. Okay, related to that is roles and responsibilities, right? Using roles and responsibilities to provide transparency of in the organization of who's doing what. Okay, so that to grow accountability, right? And then finally, many of us are practitioners at this agile. All of these things, okay, are interventions, angles, windows of looking into the organization. And I like to map this against accountability, okay? Because then things start to become really, really interesting, right? So many performance management programs, many high performance leadership development programs, many high performance team, building, initiatives, all right? They don't work, okay? Examples of, how it might not work, okay? One leader might say, we're giving them SMART goals as we've been coached, very specific, measurable, actionable, and we're being very specific, so that they know, what they need to go after. But, and they indeed are meeting them, right? But somehow, as an organization as a whole, we're still where we are, the needle isn't moving. How is it that people are diligently complying to what they've been being told, but still we're not really, performing to what we were promised on, being a high performance organization despite these things? Employee engagement. Gallup has a famous, survey. The latest 2023 version still shows that only 1/3 of employees in the U.S. are engaged, meaning the rest of the 2/3 of organizations are varying degrees, somewhat to severely disengaged. Okay, it's chronic. Yeah. So leaders make the effort. Town halls, intranet postings, teams, blasts, and so on and so forth. It's like, yeah. But it seems like a one-way communication that goes unheard. It's like you're receiving it. It's like, okay, click, click, click. Yeah, fine. Right. OKR and feedback culture not working. We've implemented OKR and we've given feedback training to all our middle managers, right? And this should, it should have increased, the energy of people. They should appreciate it. But actually, people don't like it. And in fact, people are leaving. Our attrition rate is going up. And HR, doing exit interviews, they're saying that, after this OKR thingy, we feel like we're even more monitored and managed. Why we have to sit down every month and, have this, paper to do. It's just so micromanaged. I like it. It's having a perverse effect, exactly the opposite effect of what it was intended. Ownership culture not working. We gave delegation and empowerment training to our leaders and managers, but people resist to take additional responsibility for fear of blame. Go ahead, own it. You are fully empowered. It's like, no, I would prefer to, the old way of being told what to do. Please don't give me that additional burden. Because, if I fail, yeah, I don't want to take responsibility. I don't want to be blamed. I'm going to look bad. We also saw ownership hoarding by some middle managers. Okay, this is toxic behavior, where they started creating fiefdoms, not passing down the empowerment to their people. Ownership, great, okay, great. Yeah. So I'll look good and say, okay, leave it to me. But to my people, I'm not going to, extend that, empowerment. I'm going to control. I will still tell them what to do, but me, I have the freedom. Wow, what a great place to be in. Okay? So there are some toxic behaviors where certain smart people will perversely behave. Roles and responsibilities not working. Our efforts to address role ambiguity and confusion led to unnecessarily long discussions about role boundaries and instead increased the silo mentality, causing people to become territorial about their responsibilities. Again, a perverse effect. Yes. We did this huge exercise of, clarifying our roles and responsibilities, who does what, and so on and so forth. But we kept on, having these long discussions. Is that yours? Is that mine? And in between things fall, and crack. It's like, but it was yours, not mine. People started to become even more protective, of their territory after this. Finally, agile not working. We put people into small squads and empower them to design and deliver their work collectively. Yet leaders are complaining that they feel slowed down and that there is less clarity overall. Agile doesn't work. It's cumbersome. The old way was simple. Can we go back to the old ways, please? All right. So if you put on these lenses, all right, you do see a lot of dysfunctions happening. So what's the insight here? I am in discussions with, dysfunctions happening in organizations all the time. And often cases, I would say a pattern of my work is the repair guy, failed intervention, resuscitation, trying guy. And when I look at them and, and it could be, an agile thingy, it could be an OKR thingy, it could be, anything. I was starting to really feel that, it keeps on coming back. And the two key factors was accountability, but not only accountability, but also ownership, right? So if we put a Venn diagram on each of these interventions, it seems like accountability and ownership tends to overlap a lot with all of these. So if we bank on that insight, what that means is that any of these interventions that we do, all right? So, and, it could be any kind of program. It could be feedback training that you're doing. You put on the lens and see that, is this helping to improve accountability? Is this helping to improve ownership? How do we measure that? How do we see that it is positively impacting? Are there any negatives about that? What do we need to address that? All right. This really helps. And every time you inspect and adapt with the accountability ownership test, whatever that you are doing, I have a gut feeling overall, it would be pushing it forward in the right direction. Okay, so radical simplification. All right. My hypothesis right now, and this is something that I'm going to be experimenting, and I've already started experimenting, across the next year or so, is if we have a radical simplification and a focus on accountability and ownership, will it help any type of organizational, initiative that client organizations are doing? Okay, any of them. That's my hypothesis, right? In consideration for that, okay, I mentioned that accountability and ownership are two different things. They do go hand in hand, but they are two distinct concepts. I'd like to explain that. Okay. Accountability is fundamentally an external process. It involves within the organization, typically the manager, holding you accountable by setting goals and establishing performance measures. Right? Now, key point here is, again, I'm not saying that it's given to you, it's not a one-sided conversation. The right way to set up accountability is a two-way conversation. That's the right, healthy way to do OKR, right? Okay. So, but at the end of the day, it's not just you saying, this is, what I'm, going to do, and I'm accountable. Usually, it's a contract, with your managers and organization. So that's an important element. So there is an external factor to that. Yeah. Now, compared to that, however, a sense of ownership cannot be imposed. It is intrinsic, much like personal motivation. While ownership drives motivation, accountability is about taking responsibility for the outcomes achieved. Okay? So accountability, external, ownership, internal. Two sides of the coin, hand in hand, but distinctly different things. Taking ownership of a project doesn't mean you own it. It means you care deeply about your role and the overall outcome. It is a mindset where you feel in control and committed to the project's success. Okay? So again, this is a distinction of what ownership is about. It's not about ownership of your physical work. Okay? It's about you being really caring of what you are doing. You are being really caring of the role that you have agreed to take on. So it's really more of a mindset. Okay, and the key aspects to look out is this person feeling that they are in control, and is that translating in a motivation of not only their personal success but the larger common success. These are things that we want to look out for. A manager responsible for a project success will feel personally accountable for its outcome, but will also expect participation and accountability from team members. So middle managers blues. This is very typical. All right. As you climb up the promotion ladder, all right, naturally you will feel more motivated to take larger, roles and responsibilities. So you are inclined to take accountability and ownership. Yet, coming from this side, top, you take ownership. Downwards towards your people not taking ownership, accountability, you're in a limbo. So while you are, taking a lot of responsibilities, you still have to micromanage. You have to follow instructive leadership, and that's a burden there, right? So there's an asymmetry here, all right? So in a healthy ownership and accountability culture development, we want to see symmetry up and down and sideways. Individual and team goals should ladder up to larger company goals so that everyone understands their impact on the bigger picture. So in agile lingo, task, story, epic, product. All right. We want all of this to be cohesive, throughout. So anything that the person is doing, if they see a connection to 1, 2, 3, 4 levels above, and ultimately the organization's North Star, there is transparency. There is less confusion. There is a feeling of belonging, contribution, right? It's very, very important there, right? So these are all elements that we want to look out when we are assessing how's the accountability metrics going? How's the outcome, metrics going? Okay, these are things that you can use to think about in measuring whatever intervention that you are doing. You are going in the right direction from the two lenses of accountability and ownership. All right. Now, what can we do? let's discuss. I'm going to stop the recording now and open it to the floor.